At a crowded railway station of a noisy city, where the sound of trains arriving and leaving never seemed to end, there lived a poor beggar whom everyone had seen 1,000 times, yet very few had ever truly noticed, because to most people he was nothing more than a shadow in the corner, an invisible part of the station. Every single day as the crowd rushed to catch their trains carrying their dreams, their hopes, and their burdens, the beggar sat near the platform with only one thing in his hands, an old empty bowl. That bowl was his survival, his companion, and his curse. By stretching it toward strangers, he managed to collect a few coins, sometimes enough for a dry piece of bread, sometimes not even that, but just enough to silence his hunger for one more night. He would watch passengers dressed in neat clothes, holding bags full of belongings, talking about their jobs, their families, their future, while he carried nothing but emptiness. This was his life, year after year, until his face became familiar to everyone. But his story remained unknown, because no one ever asked his name. No one cared where he came from, and he himself had almost forgotten what it felt like to dream. Then one scorching afternoon, when the platform was crowded and restless, he noticed something unusual, something that made him sit up straighter. Through the noise and chaos walked a tall man, dressed in a clean dark suit, polished shoes, and a confident stride, the kind of stride that comes only from success. He looked like he belonged to another world altogether, a world the beggar could only imagine. The beggar's heart began to beat faster, and hope, a rare guest in his chest, suddenly returned. He thought to himself, "This man looks so wealthy. Surely if I ask him, he will give me good money, maybe even enough for a proper meal today. Maybe for once I will not go to sleep hungry." Gathering all his courage, he stood up on his weak legs, stretched out his trembling hands, and blocked the man's path. In a soft, desperate voice, he whispered, "Sir, please, I am hungry. Give me something, just a little help." The tall man stopped walking, but he did not immediately take out money, nor did he turn away like others. Instead, he fixed his sharp eyes on the beggar, eyes that seemed to pierce through him, seeing not just his rags, but his soul. Then in a calm but firm voice, he asked a question that felt like a thunderbolt. "You always keep asking from people, but tell me one thing. Have you ever given anything to anyone?" The beggar froze in shock. No one had ever asked him this before. The question struck him harder than hunger ever had. His lips trembled, his throat dried, and finally, in a broken voice, he replied, "Sir, I am just a beggar. All my life I have only asked from others. I have nothing of my own. How can I give anything to anyone?" The man's expression remained serious, and he shook his head slowly. "If you cannot give," he said, "then you also have no right to keep asking. I am a businessman, and I only believe in transactions. If you want something from me, then you must also have something to give in return. Remember this, real dignity does not come from receiving, it comes from giving. Even the poorest person in this world can give something. It may not be money, but it can be a smile, a blessing, a kind word, or even a little help to someone weaker than you." Then he placed his hand gently on the beggar's shoulder and walked away, leaving behind not money, but a seed of wisdom. The beggar stood there in silence, ashamed and restless. His heart felt heavier than ever before. That night, as he lay on the cold platform floor, he could not sleep. The businessman's words kept echoing in his mind, louder than the sound of trains, louder than his hunger. Real dignity comes from giving. He kept repeating it again and again, and for the first time in many years, he felt something stirring inside him, an understanding, an awakening. He realized that true poverty was not the lack of money, it was the lack of willingness to give. From the very next day, the beggar decided to change. He did not stop asking, but he began to share the little that he received. If someone gave him 2 pieces of bread, he kept one and gave the other to a hungry child nearby. If he had a coin or two left, he shared tea with another beggar shivering in the cold. Sometimes he offered nothing but kind words, a blessing or a smile to strangers. But it was still something he was giving from his heart. Slowly, his habits began to change, and along with that, something else changed too. People. Those who once walked past him without even looking now noticed him. They saw the way he shared, the way he blessed, the way he helped. Some began giving him more generously, others simply offered a smile in return. But what mattered most was not the money or the bread, it was the respect he began to feel for himself. The beggar, who once thought he had nothing, had now discovered that he was rich in kindness. He had something no one could take away from him, his ability to give. And with every small act of giving, he felt less like a beggar and more like a human being, full of worth and dignity. His bowl was still in his hands, but now it was no longer just a symbol of asking. It was also a reminder that even an empty bowl could overflow with generosity if the heart behind it was willing. And so, my friend, this story leaves us with a question. In our own lives, are we only taking, or are we also giving back? Because life is not measured by what we collect, but by what we contribute. The man who only takes will always remain empty inside, no matter how much he owns. But the one who learns to give, even when he has little, will always remain rich in the truest sense. True wealth is not counted in coins or notes. It is counted in kindness, in love, in respect, and in gratitude. That is the wealth which never runs out, and that is the wealth every one of us can create.